Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
All right, here we go. We are on the air live, Monday edition of Soccer Morning right here on backheel.com. Hope you had a lovely weekend. Hope it involved plenty of soccer. I hope you have many opinions which you would like to share with us here on today's program. Big show for you. Coming out of a weekend, what do? We recap. We go through all of the results that we can. We've got a bunch of news here that I'm going to get to in just a minute. But I'll set this up. Our friend Charlie Bohm from MLSsoccer.com and Soccer Wire will join us to talk about the MLS weekend. And then Eric Gomez coming on to talk Mexican soccer. You had the Clásico down in Mexico yesterday. Chivas de Guadalajara hosting Club America with that rivalry, giving us everything we could ask for. Quite the amount of fun down there. So we'll talk Mexican soccer, we'll talk American soccer, we'll talk other kinds of soccer as well with open phone lines at the end of the show, so get yourself ready for that. Let's do the news. Watford upsetting Arsenal in the FA Cup quarterfinals. This game obviously bringing about a lot of consternation on the part of Arsenal fans, and of course bringing up the possibility that maybe Arsene Wenger doesn't have it anymore as manager of Arsenal Football Club. A 2-1 win for Watford at the Emirates. Is this the end for Arsene Wenger? We shall see. Of course, trying to chase down Leicester in the Premier League with 9 games to go for Arsenal. They are 8 points back of Leicester. That campaign not going well either, and they are looking towards the end of their Champions League campaign when they take on Barcelona in the second leg, down 2-0 in that tie. Also in the FA Cup, I'm going to just get rid of some of that autoplay nonsense. Also in the FA Cup, Crystal Palace beating Reading 2-0 on Friday. Everton getting past Chelsea. Manchester United and West Ham played to a 1-1 draw, so we'll have a replay. The semifinal draw takes place today at 7:20 GMT. What is that roughly? I mean, the clocks have changed for us, but not for the English. So I think that's probably 3:30, 3:20 Eastern time. So we'll keep on the lookout for that this afternoon. MLS Week 2 brings a bunch of big upsets. What a weekend. RSL beating Seattle 2-1 on an 86-minute header by James Nalave. Colorado gets an added time goal by Marco Papa to beat LA 1-0 at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Philadelphia beating Columbus 2-1 in Columbus. Chris Pontius scoring his first 2 goals for the Union. Houston in the stunner of the weekend, dropping 5 on FC Dallas in an absolute romp. They were up 4-0 in that game within 25 minutes. It was quite the stunning result there at BBVA Compass Stadium. San Jose 2-1 over Portland. Wando scores Amarikwa with a brilliant chip to give the Quakes the win over the defending champions. Other scores in MLS. You had Orlando 1-1 with Chicago, on Friday. Montreal dominating the Red Bulls in a 3-0 win. That devastating counterattack from the Impact. New England and DC played to a goalless draw at RFK Stadium. Sporting beats Vancouver. Dom Dwyer on fire with a couple of goals, including an absolute rocket to open up the scoring for Sporting. NYCFC draws 2-2 with TFC at Yankee Stadium. TFC salvaging a point out of that thanks to, Sebastian Giovinco, who scored a great goal to get them level. Zlatan Ibrahimovic told beIN Sports this weekend that he won't be with PSG next year, quote-unquote, for the moment. Jokingly, Ibrahimovic said that he would promise to stay if the Eiffel Tower is replaced with a statue of himself. They said it was joking. I'm not sure it was joking. PSG, by the way, did lock up their French League title this weekend. Yeah, that's how early they took care of business there because Ligue 1 is pretty much PSG and nobody else at this point. They beat Troyes 9-0 in their title-clinching victory. 9. I think Zlatan had 4 of those goals. I didn't even note it because it was such a ridiculous scoreline. In the aforementioned Clásico down in Mexico, Club America beat Chivas de Guadalajara 2-1 at Chivas Stadium in a wild edition of the game. Darwin Quintero, Oribe Peralta scoring for Las Águilas. Each team had a player sent off in that game, so they ended up 10v10. Plenty of beer being thrown there in Guadalajara as the visitors get the victory. We'll talk to our friend Eric Gomez about everything that happened in that game, maybe just have him tell the story of this latest edition of the rivalry. Barcelona dropping 6 in a 6-0 win over Getafe on the weekend. Atletico Madrid 3-0 over Deportivo. Real Madrid 2-1 winners at Las Palmas. Not necessarily impressively, but they did win. Bayern Munich 5-0 over Werder Bremen in Germany. Borussia Mönchengladbach 3-0 winners over Eintracht. Dortmund 2-0 winners over Mainz at Signal Iduna Park. Now, the story there was that there were 2 heart attacks in the stands, including one that unfortunately took the life of a Borussia Dortmund fan. The fans decided, both sets of fans, including the visiting Mainz fans, decided to stop singing during that game after a second heart attack led to a hospitalization. That person was revived, however. In England, Spurs, this is actual Premier League action. Spurs beating Villa 2-0 at Villa Park. And Leicester host Newcastle today with a chance to extend the Premier League lead to 5 points. They are right now 2 points up on Tottenham. Of course, they have a game in hand, that game being this game against Newcastle today. So it's 2 points with a chance to get to 5. We'll see what they can do with Newcastle in disarray, having just fired Steve McLaren and brought on Rafael Benitez. All right, that's a good start. Let's go ahead and set up our guests. First up, Charlie Boehm to do some MLS. That'll be all over the league, all of those upsets, all of that craziness that happened this weekend. We'll try to pack it all in to a chat with Charlie, and then Eric Gomez to go over things in Mexico. Don't go anywhere. It's Soccer Morning, Backhill.com.
Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
All right, we are back on Soccer Morning. It is, as I mentioned before, Monday. If you didn't know, if you woke up this morning and were like, what day is it? I have no idea. It is Monday. So that piece of information you can go about your day. We're going to talk MLS because we came out of quite an interesting MLS weekend. Full slate of games, plenty of surprises, some pretty fantastic performances and fantastic goals. Charlie Boehm from MLSsoccer.com, SoccerWire.com, many other places, and you can follow him on Twitter at CBOEHM. Joins us now. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Jason.
All right, so as I mentioned, some pretty interesting results. We'll get to those. I want to start, though, chronologically with Friday night's game, Orlando City hosting Chicago. This is a new era for the Chicago Fire. They go on the road to Chicago, having lost in the NYCFC last week, and from what I can tell, Paunovic is not going to be afraid to mess about with his formations. We're going to get to another three-man back line we saw this weekend, but he's the first one to pull it off or to decide to do it this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk in the past about the relatively insular nature of MLS coaching. Tends to be traditionally and historically a league that promotes from within. And here we go in two of the most prominent arrivals, Paunovic and Patrick Vieira over at NYCFC, have both given us some intriguing tactical wrinkles with three-man back lines this weekend. Very interesting to watch, although an early red card for Chicago kind of forced a lot of that stuff to be tossed out of the window, and that they had to drop into a four-man shape to defend for more, about an hour, a man short. But it was intriguing and promising, and I do believe that neither of these two guys are done with their experimenting.
So we'll see, whether or not Paunovic sticks with this. As you said, best laid plans obviously go out the window when you end up with a red card. On the other side of this, I mean, I expected that Orlando City's got to be pretty disappointed, and as much as they got a thrilling draw last weekend to start the season, 2 points from two games with how they played and those crowds at home, not really the best way.
Yeah, well, it's a great example of how a draw can mean so many different things in different contexts. Last week was a delirious draw to get, shorthanded in injury time, and it feels like a win. And Friday, that should definitely feel like 2 points dropped for the Lions. They had, again, an extended amount of time to press their advantage, but they simply weren't precise enough in the final third. They had plenty of possession. Their build-up play was nice. They played pretty passing sequences, as they so often do. But it all broke down in the final third, and it was particularly surprising considering the way they started. When this match was 11v11, Orlando was pretty dominant. They had a great early goal from Larin, who continues to just have razor-sharp finishing and look like maybe the best finisher in the league at the moment. Created a goal. His release is so quick. His accuracy, the power with which he can strike a ball, with not much run up, it's all very impressive. And he got a great goal, and I thought he was going to push on, but was a little bit starved of quality service. And they were asking Nocerino, their new arrival, who's I don't think is match fit yet, to play kind of be influential as a midfield creator. And he showed some promise, but he's not quite there yet, and he's certainly no Kaká.
No, certainly they do miss Kaká. There's no doubt about that. We can't fairly judge. Well, I mean, I said we can't fairly judge Orlando until they get Kaká back, Charlie. But then again, everybody deals with injuries, and there are teams around this league who are missing big names who are getting it done. So maybe it's fair to say, this is a test of Orlando, and if they're going to be a playoff team this year, they're going to have to find ways to win without Kaká.
Kaká turns 34 in a month, and so we see this as what I believe is a thigh. I'm not sure if it's quad or hamstring strain he's been dealing with for a few weeks. When you get start climbing well north of 30, these things take a little bit longer to heal, and it's looking quite possible that he's going to miss time on national team duty this summer. So there's a number of reasons to try and figure out a plan B, and we saw it here this weekend. And he's not just a guy who sells jerseys and tickets. He does pace them a little bit, but I think given the depth they've built up over the offseason, I think they have to be disappointed with the two performances without him.
Let's move on to New England hosting DC United, and a game that gave us 0 goals. As much as I want to to speak positively about New England sometimes, Charlie, they always give me a reason to doubt them a little bit. Is it? I know Charlie Davies went down with an injury. That's going to be something to watch here. Juan Agudelo obviously stepping in, but is this an example of DC United playing solid defensive soccer on the road, or are we seeing New England, be that kind of Mercurial in New England we've seen in the past?
Well, DC was certainly hanging on here for a while. It was a really fierce early start from the Revs. It just seemed a matter of time before they got on the board, and they were playing against a third string goalkeeper. We have another spot. We have had a couple of places around the league where the goalkeeping situation is unsettled, and United went with Travis Wara. Hamid, of course, is out on a long-term injury, but it was a little surprising to see Andrew Dijkstra move to the bench. I don't believe there was any injury at play there, but so Wara making his second ever MLS appearance wasn't really tested all that often. The Revs did a lot in the final third. There was a lot of movement and getting a lot of numbers in and around the box, but they didn't really test Wara in the way that they needed to. And DC dodged a few bullets early and then kind of managed the game down the stretch and got a road result. This was I'm writing a piece right now about the tactical evolution that's happening here in DC with United, bringing in more technical players and trying to play a little bit more proactive style. Well, on Saturday we saw the old United, a team that's resilient, that's dogged, and they got the road point.
All right. I mean, again, relatively speaking, I suppose that's a positive for DC United to get a point on the road against New England, a team that did score 3 times in their opener. Speaking of teams that scored 3 times, Montreal did that to the Red Bulls, 3-0 at Olympic Stadium. I don't know if there's a more impressive team through 2 weeks than the Montreal Impact, Charlie.
There's not, and there are a few teams that are more fun to watch at this early stage of the season as well. They're doing something special, I think, something that could really take them a long way. Again, this is a team without Didier Drogba, who is sort of sucks all the oxygen out of any room that he's in. He's so charismatic, he's so influential on and off the field. And he's in a different time zone. He's in Sacramento right now. He wants to train on grass. I have this sneaking suspicion he may not have realized quite what a Montreal winter was like when he signed in midsummer last year, and so maybe that's a factor here as well. But playing on the turf at Olympic Stadium, they were really impressive against New York. The sections of this game that I saw, passing combinations, movement, transitions, they just look like the full toolkit right now. Ignacio Piatti is very influential. He's playing a 10 role out there and kind of in the left channel, and their acquisition of Harry Shipp, really for a song, for a bag of balls from Chicago, looks like one of the best deals of the offseason now, because you've got 2 intellectual players there who can play very fluidly together. They can switch roles. Shipp can move centrally. Piatti can flare out to the left. They both like that left channel, and the combination play was really neat to watch. And right now, I'd say they are the neutrals' favorite in terms of, if you're looking for an MLS game to watch and you just want to see some quality of play on the ball, tune into the Impact, because they're not just beating teams; they are passing over, around, and through them.
Yeah, and doing but also that counter was absolutely devastating against the Red Bulls, and it leads me. I mean, the Red Bulls gave the ball up and made it relatively easy for the Impact to although there was an end-to-end moment. I think Evan Bush took a shot off his face, and Ignacio Piatti put the ball in the net on the other end in something like 20 seconds. Is on the other side of that. I mean, again, the Red Bulls mistake-prone in this game, but this is now 2 pretty poor performances from the defending Supporters Shield champions, and they don't have a goal in 180 minutes, Charlie. Should they be worried on the Passaic?
Yeah, given their expectations for the season, they should be worried, but not overly alarmed, not panicking yet. They've had 2 kind of tricky tasks, 2 solid teams to start the season, and they had to handle 2 different tactical challenges in those matches. Toronto, who we'll talk about in a bit here, On back-to-back trips to the New York teams now. They've kind of solved the puzzles and held on to get road results. So New York have to expect at home that they're going to see teams play a much deeper line, be much more reactive to them, because the playbook is clear now for the Red Bulls. You've got to absorb a bit of pressure, but not allow them to turn you over in dangerous places. So teams are more conservative, and they're less likely to play into the Red Bulls' hands. Against Montreal, again, like you said, that the game kind of turned on a dime in that moment where Bush makes a huge save. So 3-0 is a little deceptive in that regard, but they were outplayed. They were beaten by a smarter, more fluid team that was ready to stand toe to toe with them. But again, we see with Montreal, this team that can play in so many different game states, and that's something that New York said they needed to work on. They learned in the off season last year, and they still have a ways to go there.
All right, so the Red Bulls starting slow. We expect them to be a good team at some point, but again, it's chance creation. It's everything else that's sort of lagging behind. All right, RSL 2, Seattle 1. This game coming down to Thomas and Olave scoring in the 86th minute on a header. Sonny scored on a great bullet header I'm not sure if that was the first half, but definitely a nice goal for the newly acquired midfielder. I don't know what to make of Seattle yet, Charlie, and I'm willing to give them plenty of slack here. Again, selling Obafemi Martins a couple of weeks before the season starts was not always in the plans. I know they're talking about targeting other players and the like, and they do have the talent, but I think what's probably happening here, and aside from Jordan Morris settling in, is Siggy Schmidt trying to figure out what his best combination is.
Yeah, and this is another example where formations are more than just a way to shoehorn players onto the field together. Switching from it may seem logical and straightforward that you say, well, okay, we've got three strong strikers that we want to get in the 11, so we'll move from a 4-4-2 to a 4-3-3. Well, that's an oversimplification. It doesn't work quite that smoothly in reality. A 4-3-3 is a significantly different tactical shape. It involves different responsibilities, different rotations, and it's a challenge for players that haven't spent much time in it. And so we see that here. It gets Valdez, Dempsey, and Morris all on the field together, but does it get those three guys in the best possible situation for them to show their skills? Does it, have the three players behind them in midfield sorted out their responsibilities and their spacing? I don't think so. I don't, and I don't know if they're going to have to change the formation back, or if they just need to get more match time in this shape, or maybe they need to tweak it and customize it a little bit, because every formation is a reflection of the personnel that man it. So I think they have a work to do both on the training ground and just to get minutes under their belt in match play.
Ozzie Alonso scored the goal for Seattle. A putback after a rebound, Nick Romano making the initial save. But I don't know. Interesting that Ozzie Alonso was there for that goal. I don't know if you saw this, if you were able to see this goal, Charlie. But it's Valdez on the wing with a cross, I think, Valdez with the touch that Romano saved. I can't remember who actually put the cross in. Maybe Jovan Jones. I don't know. Is Ozzie Alonso at the back post on a late run something we're going to see?
I don't know that the system is designed to work like that. One of the things that I was under the impression was a guiding principle here is in a three-man midfield, Alonso can be more of a pure number 6 who doesn't have to range all over. I mean, he's built his reputation on being kind of a go everywhere, do everything center mid, who tracks from box to box and gets involved on both ends of the attack, which is a great skill, but it's clearly taken a physical toll on him. So my guess is that there's a lot of trust in Ozzie's tactical nous, but he is supposed to be sitting in and allowing the two guys in front of him to do the heavy lifting in the final third. But again, this is a situation where I think the Sounders know they need results. Even 2 games in, there's a sense of urgency there with that team, with the goals that they have, and the frustration. When you start off in CONCACAF Champions League in the knockout stages, that's a real double-edged sword. I talked to Ben Olsen last week about how he feels his team is ahead here with DC United. They're a bit ahead of where they would have been otherwise, even though they had the disappointment of losing in CCL. There's some minutes that come with it, but there's also when you lose a series like all four of the MLS series teams lost in that tournament, you've got to find a response if you want to carve out and contribute to a winning mentality. So I think Seattle probably feels it. We saw them make a goalkeeper change that I'm not really sure what all the circumstances are to that, but I think there's some chopping and changing and some searching for the right formulas there in many different contexts.
All right. So RSL with a big win. Don't have a whole lot of time to spend on them, but no, I'm sort of fascinated by what's happening there as well. They had less possession than you would expect, although no Javier Morales, which is obviously a big difference for RSL. But a win without him, that's a bonus. I'm not sure about his status either. Colorado 1, LA Galaxy 0. This is, I think, the right place to focus here, Charlie, is on Colorado and any positives at all, considering how bad they were last year. Marco Papa with a very nice goal in added time, but this was a goalless game until those extra minutes.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a grinder. This was not always easy on the eyes. It was cold and blustery out at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. But to the very end, it looked like LA were going to manage this game and get a point on the road. We've heard, seen a lot of positive talk about Steris, their new central defender, who's stepped up from their USL team and has done pretty well so far. But he made a cardinal sin and was punished for it. Kind of flubbed a headed clearance, and it went straight up and led to a vicious full volley from Marco Papa. It's a pretty goal, but one that was somewhat gifted. Credit to Papa, regardless, for a great finish and a clutch finish. But just a late slip in concentration and an example maybe of tightening margins in MLS. We know what a forgiving playoff format we have here with 12 out of 20 qualifying for the postseason. But every year, the margin for error shrinks a little bit, even with that format change. And teams are punished for mistakes maybe they would have gotten away with in years past.
Yep. All right, so the Galaxy fall on the road. Columbus, defending Eastern Conference champions, fall at home 2-1 to the Philadelphia Union, and Chris Pontius does the deed twice for the Union. That's the player the Union hoped to get when they traded for him from DC, with DC United. Is there a reason to hope that maybe this the Chris Pontius we saw 4 years ago is the Chris Pontius the Union have now, Charlie?
I think so, and of course, it's easy to make jokes about Pontius and to be cynical about him because he has spent so much time in the sick bay, of the last few years, and he's had so many problems with the sort of leg muscular injuries, specifically hamstrings, but also groins, which are crucial for a footballer and that really get tested with the daily, monthly grind of a long MLS season. So there's a lot of soccer still to come here, but you saw a little bit here why Pontius was acquired by the Union, a trade that raised some eyebrows. Although I don't think the word really got around to the extent that it should have. That DC are paying some of his salary that really hasn't been widely reported on. But he's come to the Union at more of a discount maybe than the reporting thus far would indicate.
Okay.
And it's a worthwhile gamble, I think. And you see here, one of the things I loved about Pontius's performance was, like I talked about Laren, players that can release the ball quickly, get their shots off quickly in and around the box are rewarded in this league, and Pontius did that. I think both his goals were first-time finishes, and that goes a long way. And I saw a number of cases this weekend where players would have scored with more trust in their first hit, and so credit to him. He's still a very savvy player who still I think got a lot of soccer left in his legs.
Well, there you go. So Chris Pontius with a good performance for the Union against Columbus, and Columbus on the other side, 0-2. Charlie, very much like the Red Bulls, just finding it tough going in the early days. Even though they bring back pretty much all of their team from last year that was so successful. Any reason to worry for Greg Berhalter?
Yeah, considering that he had acknowledged that the supporter shield was a goal, and so they're already behind the curve in that regard. He's got to find that right balance as a returning Cup finalist of continuity and urgency. He's got to push his guys along and keep them challenged while keeping the benefits of having the same number of guys around. We can certainly make an argument that there's a karmic justice here, switching away from the iconic all gold kits. Maybe there's some kit karma here with that highly questionable alternate jersey they're wearing right now. But I think for Columbus, it's about they'll be frustrated by losing at Portland last week, but they can chalk that one up to a tough game on opening day on the road. The home field advantage, though, that's been a priority for them that they've mentioned repeatedly this offseason. So to drop a loss already at Mafre Stadium is concerning. I think that's going to be a big focus for him in the weeks ahead in the training session. I'm sure they'll hear a lot about the importance of a fortress.
Let's go to the most stunning result from the weekend by, I think, a fairly wide margin, despite the fact that we had Montreal doing in the Red Bulls pretty emphatically. The Colorado win is an upset. Philadelphia and Columbus is an upset. But FC Dallas losing 5-0 to Houston, even though that game was in Houston, and being down 4-0 inside of, I think, 25 minutes, Charlie. Is this just a case of a bad day at the office, and once the snowball gets rolling, it's pretty hard to stop?
Yeah, and it's strange. Dallas, I think, is still a great team and will do great things this season, but it seems like every year they have one of these games relatively early on in the season where they just get absolutely skunked. I think it was last year that Colorado, a winless Colorado team, came into their place in springtime and beat them 4-0 in Frisco. So you can certainly call out Oscar Pareja and ask point the finger at the coach for allowing this result to happen in sense of allowing his players to slip into this mode, because it wasn't just losing 5-0. It was being down 3-0 in very early on. I think it was 4-0 at half. The defensive breakdowns, there was one of these was a really ugly own goal. Jesse Gonzalez, their young goalkeeper, may have finally showed a little bit of humanity here and acted like the very young person that he is in terms of maybe letting his defense go to sea and not quite having organization and understanding back there. But the ease with which the Dynamo really snuffed out some very talented attacking players was impressive. Andrew Wenger was very good going in both directions out wide on the flank. He tracked back really diligently to deal with Fabian Castillo. And then Mauro Diaz had Rico Clark in his pocket, draped all over him, I should say, for long periods. Really, Diaz does really well, even with defenders around him, with his ability on the half turn. But Houston just were dominant in this game, and it was I think it was a great game plan, and it was effective use of the shape and the weapons that he had by Owen Coyle.
Yeah, Owen Coyle bringing something new to Houston this year. I think last year, obviously, a transition season. Lots of those old faces, the recognizable names. Obviously, Brad Davis leading the way there. Now, he's gone, and not that he's gone is leading to a different Houston, but I've been told by people in Houston, and the words out of Owen Coyle's own mouth are that they want to open it up a little bit more. Charlie, is that what we're seeing? Are we seeing a Houston Dynamo team that's not going to play as much dom ball as we're used to?
Yeah, dom ball is dead and buried in Texas. It's the ghost has moved out to the West Coast for sure. Coyle's he talked the talk over the winter. He spoke at length to reporters at the draft and was very effusive and surprisingly open about his desire to play this way. And you hear that kind of talk a lot, but here we are, 2 games in, 8 goals in 180 minutes. That's impressive. And I think they'll be tested more by when they have to do this against top teams, when they have to hit the road. They do benefit from being a warm weather locale that gets almost always gets a few games to start with at home early on. So we'll see how it looks away from home. But so far, Coyle's done it. He's brought in more pace to the team. He's brought in more width, and with Maidana, he's got a guy. He's handed the keys off to a mercurial playmaker, and so far everything's coming up trumps for him.
Yeah, and the other part of that trade from Philadelphia, Andrew Wenger, as you said, very good both ways. A goal and 2 assists in that game Saturday, in the big win for Houston over FC Dallas. Sporting Kansas City 2-1 over Vancouver. Vancouver starting out 0-2 is obviously a thing. Sporting Kansas City starting out 2-0, and Dom Dwyer. I mean, you talked about the quick shot. I think Dom Dwyer is a guy who embodies that. Maybe not with these 2 goals on Saturday, Charlie, but if he's going to score goals like he did in this win, then Sporting is a lot better off than maybe we thought they were.
Yeah, he was. Well, I thought Sporting's was one of the more impressive performances of the weekend. To control that match the way they did, they had a great home crowd pushing them forward. It's looking like what used to be Sporting Park is now Children's Mercy Park is going to be a very tough place to play this year because they're able to possess. They still have that sort of physical edge and that grinding quality to them. But then the movement. I mean, both fullbacks were getting into the attack at will. Dwyer's movement was very sharp, very intelligent. He was working hard in pressing opposing defenses. The first goal was created by his hard work on the other side of the ball, and just an absolute thunderbolt. I mean, we saw some great goals this weekend, and his was top shelf. I think it would have been head and shoulders above the rest if not for that amazing shot that Quincy Amarikwa pulled out on Sunday.
Yeah.
But Dwyer was good, and of course now it must be said too in Vancouver's defense they were also the victims of an early red card, some really questionable play by Smith, their defender, who
very
was
ugly,
just
ugly.
had a nightmare. But it perhaps is time to press the panic button in Vancouver because they can't really afford to drop many more points if they want to keep pace with their ambitions in the West. This is a really, really rugged West, and Vancouver's in trouble.
Yeah, well, okay, and then just on the Sporting side of things, no Benny Feilhaber again, and they got the job done. So we'll see what happens when Benny gets back into the lineup, especially if Dom Dwyer is going to start out as sharp as he was. All right, we're running out of...
big credit to Roger Espinosa also. He was super instrumental in that midfield.
All right, running out of time. Want to move on to the Sunday games. NYCFC 2, Toronto FC 2. This game noteworthy in part because Patrick Vieira's tactics, also because Sebastian Giovinco is still really, really good. And I just saw this stat, Charlie, and I don't know what this means, but give me your thought. It says, this is from Who Scored, by the way. Andrea Pirlo made more tackles versus Toronto FC last night, 8, than he has in any league match in the last 7 seasons. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, there's been tons of Pirlo jokes, right, over the last year since he came into the league. But he was active on both sides of the ball, and he's put in a formation that's kind of built to bring out his best qualities. Federico Bravo, their Argentine signing in the offseason, was paired next to him in I think what they called on paper was called a 3-2-4-1. It's been compared to the 3-6-1, legendary or infamous, depending on your angle, 3-6-1 that the U.S. national team played under Steve Sampson.
There you go.
But it works, that they're playing on a tight pitch there at Yankee Stadium, and Pirlo was able to influence play a lot because they really flooded numbers into the final third. I mean, you had Mix, Diskerud, and Tommy McNamara playing effectively both as attacking midfielders in a box midfield ahead of Pirlo and Bravo. And it worked because they can transition so quickly. They were able to pressure Toronto, really force Toronto back into their own end. It just so happens that there's this pretty talented guy named Giovinco on the other side wearing red who played Superman yet again and rescued his team.
Yeah, I mean, Giovinco, with the equalizer for Toronto, helped them get a point. And so far, that's 4 points for Toronto's start. They're going to be on the road for another 5 or 6 games, I think, Charlie. Mm-hmm. So anything that they get, I mean, they need to build up. They need to build something up for when they go back home and have a good run of games at home. Not that this could end their season by any stretch, but it's interesting to see Toronto and without Josie Outdoor, of course. So we'll see what happens when he's back in the lineup. All right, last game on the docket. Last game on the schedule, San Jose 2, Portland 1. Big win for the Quakes at home. And when I watched this game and had to did a little blurb for it on it for ESPN FC, for me, Charlie, that's the quintessential Chris Wondolowski goal. A 5-yard run to the near post, and then you get Quincy Amarikwa doing what Quincy Amarikwa did, and you get a big win at home.
Yeah, isn't it funny? You have this interesting strike partnership in San Jose with the epitome of MLS striking dependability, Chris Wondolowski, who could probably, at the way he's going, the way he uses his brain, he could probably do this for another 5, 6, 7 years. Versus Amarikwa, who is really an enigma. On his worst day, he's strictly a placeholder, a signpost for other players to get involved around. And then yesterday he pulls out one of the greatest goals in MLS history. I think just a visionary chip into the top corner from far away, surrounded by defenders. Just an amazing play, but a great example of sort of the MLS self-made man, right? A guy who's continuing to evolve his game and improve as a professional well into his 20s.
Yeah, Quincy, again, you can't account for that kind of goal if you're Portland. I don't think Kouarse did anything overly wrong on that sequence. It was perfectly placed by Amarikwa. Just briefly here on Portland, Charlie, I don't know if you put a lot of stock into that. They probably could have gotten a point on a different day. I know Caleb Porter at halftime was talking about the field conditions. It was basically a downpour in San Jose. Did you just toss this one out if you're Portland?
Yes and no. There are a lot of extenuating circumstances, but and Caleb Porter can write off that Amarikwa goal. That Wondolowski goal, on the other hand, is one that's going to keep him up at night. That's going to have him kicking himself. He went out and got Jermaine Taylor in the offseason. There's a real focus in Portland on getting MLS experience to build their depth with the multiple competitions they have. But Taylor just went to sleep on that first goal and was allowed Wando to get across his face to the near post, and that's just a cardinal sin for a defender and something that you should be prepared for, that kind of movement from Wando. And an example of the drop you're inevitably going to get when you go from a designated player like Ridgewell. Down to his backup, and Ridgewell. That's if it's the same calf injury that nagged him all throughout last year. This is a little bit of a red flag. They've got to figure out whether they need to sit him a while or if they need to manage his minutes in a different way, because he's clearly crucial for them.
Yeah. So Portland needs their best defenders on the field. Obviously, Jermaine Taylor, as you said, fell asleep, but that's what Wando does. He makes defenders fall asleep. Charlie Boehm talking about MLS with us here on a Monday. Go follow him on Twitter, CBOEHM. Charlie, appreciate the time as always. Good stuff, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, Jason.
There goes Charlie. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk Mexico with our friend Eric Gomez, because they had the Clasico last night. It was a doozy. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning, backheel.com.
Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
All right, slight change of plans. Eric Gomez, currently unavailable. Something, I don't know. It's, sometimes you dial a number and it doesn't work. So we will see if we can get Eric on this show. If not today, then tomorrow, whatever. We'll work it out. It's always good to talk to Eric, but we do not have him right now. He is not here. So we will take your calls at 646-832-3909. 646-832-3909. I'm going to try to do that slower. 646-832-3909. There you go. Now, we have time to take your calls on MLS, on the Premier League, on the FA Cup, on Mexico, on Spain. 6-0 win for Barcelona this weekend. What PSG did is not fair and or legal in most countries, I think. So that's a thing that happened as well. Again, Zlatan Ibrahimovic talking about replacing the Eiffel Tower with a statue of himself so that PSG can keep him. Not that I don't know that he's joking. I think he's probably serious. This is what Zlatan does. And what else is on tap here on a Monday? I mean, I was all prepared to talk about the Clásico. I was all prepared to talk about Chivas de Guadalajara and Club America, and now I've got nothing for you. I mean, we could go through this MLS stuff again, but that seems like overkill. I do have a couple of items saved to sort of break glass in case of emergency situation. One of those is this story from last week over at World Soccer Talk, in which apparently Tim Vickery went on their podcast over there. We used to be partnered with them. We're not anymore. They didn't like us. I don't know. Tim Vickery apparently went on their podcast and said something about MLS is scaring people in Brazil, which I think is interesting. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it means anything, really. Like, I don't know if it's something we should care about or not, or what. Like, does it mean anything at all that people in Brazil are afraid of MLS's growing clout? Or does that say more about Brazil than it does MLS? Because I think Brazil and the Brazilian league quite often gets in its own way. Obviously, the economy of Brazil is a major player in whether or not Brazilian clubs can compete internationally. Clearly, Brazil remains one of the largest exporters of talent, if not the largest exporters of talent in the world, which means a talent drain at all points, no matter what. I mean, you can be Corinthians, you can be Sao Paulo, you can be any of these clubs, the biggest clubs in Brazil. And if you're constantly selling your best players to Europe, it's going to be hard to compete with anybody, much less the growing leagues of America. Meaning Mexico and the United States in terms of MLS. So, that's an interesting thing, though. Here we go. I used to annoy people a few years ago now by pointing out the average crowds in MLS were higher than average crowds in the Brazilian First Division. In the last few years, they've seen the rise of MLS. Unfortunately, the people who are concerned about this are not the people in positions of power. They are independent pundits. That comes across in an article written by Amir Somogi, who is perhaps the leading specialist in soccer finance, who said last week that it's not going to take very long before Brazilian clubs are overtaken in financial terms by MLS and have been overtaken in terms of international importance. In Somogi's article, it says, because of America's efficiency and Brazil's incompetence, they will soon overtake us. So this is yet another warning shot that Brazilian football is falling badly behind. It could be a little bit of a sky is falling situation there. It's going to be a little while before MLS overtakes anybody in terms of international prominence, in my mind. Ethan, in Fargo, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, Jason?
Going well, sir. What's on your mind?
Say, I was going to ask about Seattle. I'm a Sounders supporter up here in North Dakota, believe it or not.
Okay.
And I was curious, what the best fit is for that DT spot that they have open. So we sold Ova. And he's got all this issues with center back depth right now. I mean, Zach Scott's great, but, he's not starting material. You got Evans out. You got Roman Torres out. So I mean, what are we going to do with that DP spot?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a DP center back. I think they're going to go attacking.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Seattle's going to spend their money on attacking players. I don't know. I mean, do you think that they need another forward? It seems to me that there are options there. It's just that they're all imperfect options, and you need Clint Dempsey playing a little deeper so he can have more of the ball. You need Jordan Morris isn't there yet, and I'm not sure you want him leading the line anyway. You sort of make up for some of his deficiencies, or at least I imagine the hope is, by putting him on the wing. So I don't know. I mean, is it an Obafemi Martins type of player? There aren't many of those in the world.
Right, that's very true. Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I guess that's why I wanted to pick your brain about it, because I have no idea what the best fit would be.
I'm terrible at this. I'm admittedly terrible at this thing where it's like, here's a hole in a team. Who should they fill it with? Especially when it comes to DPs, because it's a matter of, okay, which. I hope Seattle isn't the type of team that's going to go after a 35-year-old. Okay, so that means. What do they, what do they value here? If they value age and talent, that means somebody off the radar that I might not even know, or I might not know is available. It could be somebody from South America, as a matter of fact. It could be somebody out of Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Uruguay, somebody like that. I mean, they have history in Uruguay. They have, they obviously have a name. They play in front of big crowds. That means that they probably have a better draw in terms of convincing somebody to come than a lot of teams around this league. But who is in that perfect, it's that sweet spot, right? It's that perfect zone of not too good for MLS, but better than most players in MLS, but also at the end of end of a contract, because they're not going to go spend $10 million on a transfer fee right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's
hopefully Lagerway's got some kind of ace in the hole in that scouting network going on. So I guess we'll see what we see. But yeah, I don't know what the best fit either is. You'd think you're going to replace him with a forward after you just got rid of Martins, but
it could
there's
be
definitely some kind of depth issues around other areas of the field with injuries going on at center back and even in the midfield. Freeberg.
They're going to have to just navigate the center back situation. I mean, especially with I don't know what Torres's time frame is, but that's the guy you signed to fill that
They're
spot.
talking about June, possibly July or August for him to be back. So
you're gonna get Evans back before that, so you'll be not okay. Okay is relative, of course. They need to they need a win to get some confidence here. I'm looking at a post at Sounded at Heart, which covers the Sounders for SB Nation. And they basically polled all the people that can contribute to their site and asked them for their picks in terms of DPs. And they've got dream DPs and realistic DPs. I like the guy that goes by the name Lickett P. Dream DP signings Laton, realistic DP signings Laton. So I think that's probably I would love that, but I don't think it's going to happen. Some of these names. Let's see, just undervalued central mid playing in South America. That's obviously not very specific. Emerson Hyndman for Andrew Beck. That's not going to happen. Ricardo Montalivo is a name put forward here by Aaron Campo, who I like and respect. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's kind of a crapshoot. Are they going to go? They're going to go European. They're going to go South American. Is there a player who can they strike gold the way that Toronto FC did with a Jovinko type player? I don't know.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
We will.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ethan. I would love to give names. That's the thing. I would love to have names to give you. I really am bad at that. There's a blank spot. Think of somebody. Steve in Texas.
All right, Jason. Just calling in to talk about that one of the highlight American game.
Yeah.
It was pretty great. I mean,
Wait, Steve, hold on. Pretty great by what standard? Pretty great by that game standard, because I flipped by there at one point and I probably saw at least 75 beers hit the field. So what was happening?
Yeah, no, okay. Well, it was great as in it was exciting. It is very sad that the fans are throwing those things And even Paolo Aguilar got hit with a cup of beer in it, and the game was about to be suspended by the ref if they didn't stop. And I think they passed it on the on their speaker phones that it would be canceled if they didn't stop throwing it. But yeah, very, very aggressive by the fans at OmniLife Stadium.
It's not like
it was very chippy.
Yeah, it's not like the Chivas fans have had a lot to cheer about, but yeah, I got you. It was definitely chippy. It was definitely a tough game, as you would expect.
No, yeah, and to my surprise, I mean, the Guadalajara fans actually left the stadium singing. So, now that you mention it, they did leave the stadium singing, even though they lost 2-1. I got to talk about that goal that was not given to them by the linesman. And to be honest, it was actually a good goal in that first half. So it was kind of weird because they scored the goal, and then the whole stadium celebrated, and then it was like maybe 10, 15 seconds, and then the linesman raises the flag after the Club America fans go to the center referee and start complaining that it was actually offside. So, yeah, kind of weird there what happened. And all the Chivas fans started booing. It was kind of a tense moment at the stadium at that time.
Yeah,
and, no, but just...
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, just one thing is that second half, I think, is what got everybody excited. Those last 15 minutes, I mean, even with both teams with 10 players on the field, it was very exciting. Especially for me, I was sitting at the edge of my seat. I mean, Chivas was about to get that draw, and for me, it was kind of like a nail-biting moment, and weird to see that they added an extra 7 minutes of compensation time. It got me personally mad, but yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, looked like a brilliant game. I kind of wish I had a chance to watch more of it. Unfortunately, Sundays are tough. Darwin Quintera's goal, fantastic. And those games, and there are only maybe, I don't know. I mean, look, there's great rivalries around the world. But I think what Mexico does better than most countries is, even when you have Barcelona, Real Madrid, and that's probably the biggest rivalry in the world, right? There's not that like palpable, and this, when I say better than everybody else, this is kind of relative. There's like a buzz, a feeling of danger, and I'm not even in the stadium, but I can sense it coming through the television. There's like this. And it's more than just the beer being thrown, and certainly you don't want any violence, and of course we don't want any fans going up against other fans, but there's just this edge to the atmosphere at a game like that. Boca River is the same sort of thing. Maybe it's a Latin thing. I don't know, Steve, but it's that edge there to the buzz in the atmosphere.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, when you talk about those games, the Club America games and Chivas games, or even the America games and Pumas games. I mean, those are, for America fans to go into Ciudad Universitaria, it's very dangerous for them. And there's, if you go on social media, the fans of the Pumas would be like, well, let's see when you guys come over to our stadium, let's see what happens, or I dare you guys to come to our stadium. And that kind of thing that comes with the passive aggressiveness. And just one thing that I wanted to mention is that curious thing for me, Sunday morning, I went to the grocery store, and I'm seeing all these Club America fans and Chivas fans with their jerseys on. There's kind of like a good atmosphere to see, and I have people coming up to me because I have my jersey on as well. I know you're kind of against that, but I have my jersey on as well, and this guy comes up and he's like, well, how many are we going to score today? Or, it's just that excitement that you see throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, when will, I be able to wear, like, for example, I'm here in Dallas. When will I be able to wear an FC Dallas shirt and, that kind of atmosphere be at the grocery store or out in public?
Yeah, I don't know, Steve. I mean, that's I think it's just time. And look, this is not... It's not a dig at fans of Mexican soccer, and obviously in Texas, Southern California, I would imagine Denver, some other places. That passion for Liga MX comes out in public in ways that the local MLS team just doesn't get. I think that is going to help limit some of that stuff you're talking about, where you could go out and rep FC Dallas and have that same conversation. I think it's a crowded atmosphere for sports in general and for soccer in particular. When you go out on the weekend mornings and there's a bunch of hipsters running around wearing Premier League jerseys, and you go out on Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and depending on where you are, and you can see plenty of Mexican League jerseys. And then, so
Right.
MLS trying to drive itself in there is tough.
I mean, I would love that. I mean, for example, that game this weekend that you were talking about earlier with the Dallas-Houston match. I mean, I would love that to go out in a FC Dallas jersey and have somebody tell me, how many goals are we going to score against Houston, or, I guess just a little bit of passion that's visible. Or maybe I'm just in my little own bubble.
We all live in our bubbles, Steve. And that's the thing. Thanks for the call, man. I really appreciate it. Good chat. We all live in our own bubbles, and I think that sometimes it's tough to pull ourselves out of those bubbles, or we are comfortable in them. However you want to say it. I mean, it's the world, the first world, the technology-driven world is a niche world, right? I mean, everybody's got their own particular interest and their own particular thing, and because of the content delivery mechanisms, you can listen to, watch, learn, read, whatever you want. I mean, anything. So you're not limited by what media presents to you. Not anymore. I mean, not like you were 20 years ago. You couldn't possibly fill your time doing only something related to Harry Potter 20 years ago, or any. It doesn't matter. Pick a subject. I mean, pick a thing that people are interested in that would have been one thing among many 20 years ago, and you couldn't really you couldn't fill your time partaking in that one thing. Now you can do that if you want. Now, I think you're probably best off being a varied personality and having many different interests, but it doesn't matter. My point being, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, sports were front and center to our lives because those were one of the few ubiquitous entertainment products out there. That's not the case anymore, which means this is not an excuse for MLS. It's just what MLS has to go up against, what soccer in general has to go up against in this country, and then MLS in particular as it tries to find its way among the many different soccer products available. If you want to be in the United States and only care about Liga MX, then you could do that. If you want to be in the United States and only care about the Premier League, you can do that. And you can listen to podcast after podcast and watch highlight after highlight. Anyway, whatever. 646-832-3909. Just a couple minutes left here on a Monday edition of Soccer Morning. Again, we'll reschedule Eric Gomez. We'll talk to him about the Clásico Nacional, Super Clásico, whatever they call it. There's like 4 different names, right? For the Mexican rivalry game of note. Chivas de Guadalajara and Club America. All right. Let's go to Don in New York. Hey, Don. Dan. Sorry, Dan. Dan in New York. My eyes.
Stan.
Hey, I got it. Hey, Dan.
Stan, like with an S.
Oh, well, then that's Trevor's fault. Hey, Stan. What's going on?
I'm chilling. How's it going, brother?
Not bad. All right, so what's on your mind today?
Hey, man, so I'm just piggybacking off of the whole rivalry stuff you're talking about with the last caller. I think in the States, it's a little bit more, how can I say, localized. And again, I know like the rivalry is pretty much in its infancy stage, but those U.S. Open Cup matches between New York Red Bulls and New York City and New York Cosmos, or the New York Cosmos and NYCFC, I've been at each game, and those games, I'm telling you, there's been fights in the parking lots. There's been cheering back and forth between the supporters groups. Like specifically at that Cosmos NYCFC game, when the Cosmos equalized to send that game into penalties, it was just, you talk about atmosphere, you talk about like security getting tightened up. Same thing with the New York Cosmos and the Red Bulls games. Like those games are pretty much intense, and even like the attendance at that Cosmos New York Red Bulls Open Cup game, it wasn't full, but it was pretty much it was close to a pretty good crowd for what you get at Red Bull Arena for an Open Cup game. So I think we're getting there. I think it's just kind of like you'll see certain segments that's a little bit more ratcheted up. I'm not sure how Colorado and like that USL team does, but I'm pretty sure I think we have something starting in OKC too. So I wanted to kind of like also kind of get your thoughts on, how do you feel about the new Rayo OKC team? Their roster looks pretty good, and I think there's probably going to be a pretty good like little rivalry going on over there.
Right.
Thanks, man. That's all I got.
Appreciate it, Stan. I appreciate the call. In order for those things to become verifiable, legitimate, seriously intense rivalries, there has to be some sort of balance between never playing each other, because you got to play, and playing too much. And this is one of those things that people worried about with the Cascadia rivalry games, that an unbalanced MLS schedule that led to 3 times a year would actually be too many games, and it wouldn't have that same sort of vibe to it. Now, I think that's been proven wrong, but in the sense that you have teams in different leagues, that means they have to play in the Open Cup, right? And I think the Open Cup is pretty regionalized in the early stages these days when the professional teams come in. But I think this would, the way that it works out right now, I think USL teams have to win to get to the round in which the NASL teams enter, et cetera, et cetera. You just got to have these games, but those things, you can't drop 2 teams into a city and expect the rivalry to be jumping. It doesn't work that way. Let's go to Nelly in Texas. Last call, Nelly.
Hey, Jason. The last call, the call from Dallas. If he sees me around with Dallas with an FC Dallas hat, he can talk to me about FC Dallas anytime.
All right, there you go.
Here in Dallas is very hard to get the Mexican fan who supports the Liga MX team to become an FC Dallas fan. It's just tough, and I understand it because a lot of the Mexican fans have allegiance, have their fathers, their relatives who follow a Mexican team. In my case, I'm Hispanic. My family's from Mexico, but nobody in my family watches soccer. I'm the only guy that watches soccer, so I don't have like my dad who supports a Liga MX team. So I don't have a connection to Liga MX. So for me, FC Dallas is my team. But I get it. I have a few friends that follow Santos America, and I try to tell them to come to MLS games, but I understand that they have that connection with the Liga MX team because of family, and I get it. It makes sense to me. If I were to move to Seattle or somewhere else and tell me, hey, stop following FC Dallas, well, I won't do it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, those things. I don't know. I don't know if the answer is time, because while I do think time will have an impact on soccer's place in the United States and on MLS's place in the sports landscape, and MLS is in people's place in people's lives, Nelly, you definitely have. It's an immovable thing. It's not like Mexican league games are going anywhere. You know what I mean? It's not like the bigger MLS gets, the less Mexican soccer will be on television. There's no reason for any of those networks to take Mexican soccer off of television. In fact, what you're more likely to see, and I think this is coming to Fox maybe, is Mexican league games with English language broadcasters, like the ESPN did a couple years ago, because there's an untapped market. There's a second, third generation, maybe more comfortable speaking English, who will definitely watch those games and have those attachments that you're talking about that you don't have. So we're not talking about a situation where MLS is going to start pushing out Liga MX as the team, as the league of choice for Mexican Americans. MLS is going to have to try to just be also the league that the Mexican Americans care about, not the other, not replacing Liga MX, Liga MX, but to be alongside it. And that's hard, right?
Yeah, that's just hard. I mean, I don't get it. You have your supporters for MLS and you have your supporters for Liga MX.
And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing, right, Nelly? Because of the natural built-in rivalry between the two countries that has happened with the national teams, now that trickles over, and now it's like, well, if I'm a Santos fan, I can't be an FC Dallas fan too, because what if they end up playing in the Champions League or something, or it's more like my Mexican pride overshadows any love I might have for the local team because I want Mexico to be better at soccer than the United States.
Right.
But anyway, it's complicated.
Yeah, it can be complicated. I was going to talk too about the Houston FC Dallas game. That was a horrible game.
Well, it's a horrible game for you. Now it's a good.
Defense.
What happened? Tell me what happened before I let you go.
The back line wasn't prepared. You had Hedges who gave up that own goal. The left line didn't look prepared, and it was just sloppy the first 30 minutes, and then after that, they just couldn't catch up.
Yeah. Once it got out of hand, it was pretty much over. I mean, you would expect that FC Dallas would have the ability to come back in that game, but it just it got to be too much. All right, Nelly, I got to let you go. Anything else before I do?
That's it, man.
All right, appreciate the call. Nelly down in Texas jumping in on Soccer Morning. All right, that's going to do it for a Monday edition of the program. Thank you very much to Charlie Boehm for his appearance on today's show, talking MLS. Very interesting MLS weekend. MLS is different, guys. It can be weird like that, but that's a good thing in some ways. All right, you got the Premier League game today. A bunch of stuff happening. We'll be back tomorrow to cover it all. Follow us on Twitter @SoccerMorning, and until tomorrow, have a good one. Later.